So, cup of tea time. It's 3 o'clock here in Switzerland. Got my cup of tea. And I thought it would be a good moment to sit down and have a little chat, talk to you guys, and hopefully some of you will pop in, come and say hello, and I don't know, have a chat with me back. I particularly want to talk today about babies crying. We've been talking about that a little bit in the group this week, and the big question is, how do we make the crying stop? Let's make the crying stop. So, yeah, how realistic is that? Babies cry. We all know that babies cry. When you become a parent, you know that you're going to be in for some crying. And that's just part of having a child. Well, that's true. But there are lots of ways you can reduce the amount of crying that you and your baby have to suffer through. So, what do you usually do when your baby starts crying? I remember with our first baby, we had the checklist. I hope you can't hear my dishwasher. It's a bit loud. Sorry if you can hear it. Next time I'll try and do this when the dishwasher's not on. But my daughter's here and you know what it's like with life. Anyway, so what do you do when your baby's crying? We had a checklist that was especially useful with our first baby because we were still trying to figure out baby sign then, and we were really not sure if it was going to work, and we didn't know about the other stuff. So the checklist, I'm sure you have it too actually, it goes like this. Okay, the baby's crying. Why is the baby crying? Is the baby crying because they're hungry? Do they want milk? Are they too hot, too cold? Are they too tired? Maybe overstimulated? Is my baby bored? Right? Does it sound familiar? Potty, do they need a nappy change? Do they have to go on the potty? All these things, and you run through all the list, and you know, is something hurting them in their clothes? Is it a label, or do they want their bear? Or it could be any number of things, right? And it's almost impossible to know what it is half the time. Sometimes you solve the problem. We're talking about what you do when your baby starts crying. So how do you know why they're crying? Well, you do the checklist. Why are they crying? Are they hot? Are they cold? Are they hungry? Is it milk? What do they need? Nappy change. And you go through the list, and maybe you'll never find out why they were crying. Maybe you've solved the problem, maybe you don't. Okay. Okay, we have to mention at this point that it could just be the witching hour. That's a thing. So for us, it was early evening. I think that's the time that it generally is. Or it could be that you have a sick child, that your child's not very well. And if that's the case, then you need to, you know, be aware of that, of course, and pursue a doctor call or something else. If you have a sick kid, if you have a teething kid, then you're having to treat the teething, and that's why the crying is happening. But let's just say it's not being sick, it's not the witching hour, or even if it is the witching hour, what are some things that you can do? Okay, so we've been talking about that in the group. Some ideas were to put on some music, which I thought was very nice. Some soothing music could be good. Something classical perhaps, or some nursery rhymes, or like lullaby nursery rhymes, the ones that help your baby get sleepy. And hugs. What worked really nice with mine is to put him in, with my first child, was to put him in the baby carrier and wear him. With my daughter, that didn't work. So you also have to know your baby and what works for your child. So there's a little bit of experimentation involved. Another thing that works really well is to take them outside for a walk in the pushchair or in the pram, sometimes some fresh air. And if they're in the pram and they're looking at the sky, that's really peaceful for them, and that sometimes helps. Lots of people swear by driving around the neighbourhood, right? Have you ever done the nighttime drive around to try and get your child back to sleep because they just won't stop crying? We never got that far, but we were tempted a couple of times to do that. So yeah, those are some options. Another really good one is water. Water is amazing for disgruntled children. So water, what do I mean? Well, you can give them something to drink. That works really well with my son, for example. Or you can, with newborns, you can, something that they really like, it's kind of weird, but they really like it. If you have your newborn and you can hold them, if they're swaddled, it helps, but you hold them just let the tap run of some lukewarm water that you test first here, you know, like when you run the bath, so not too hot, not too cold, body temperature water. And you're running the tap of a sink, so in the kitchen or in the bathroom, and you hold your baby with their head on your hand, and you just let the water fall onto their forehead and down the back of their head. This is really soothing for a newborn. It's delicious, and very often they just relax because it's really similar to the feeling of being in the womb, I guess, in the liquid. And so that could be a nice way to try out water, calming your baby with water. Another possibility, it could be with water, is to run a bath. Although some babies find that a bit too stimulating, but other babies with some lavender maybe in the bath, that can be quite relaxing. Or to fill a bucket and let them splash and play in the water. Always stay with your baby, of course, but let them splash, 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 play in the water. And that, you know, put their hands in and just swidge it around with a little plastic cup or something. It's very simple. And it could be just what your baby needs to get them out of that mindset that they're screaming and crying, and jolt them into another mindset where they stop crying. So those are some really nice suggestions. Some of those we talked about in the Facebook group this week. And then, well, signing, baby signing. So I'm all about the infant communication, and baby signing is one of the big tools that we use on the infant communication baby sign language course. And so how can this help your baby, and how does it help reduce crying? Well, when you have a newborn, you can learn about their body language. So this is pre-signing really. So from like birth until 6 months old, there are lots of signals that your baby's body language is giving you that will allow you to understand their needs and wants before they start crying. And so there are some wonderful ways to know if they are hungry, if they are tired, even if they need to use a potty, which you can do with your baby from birth until 6 months old. So that's related to elimination communication, which is communication. It's all the same thing, right? So those are things that you can look out for. Well, it's quite a lot of things. We'll maybe not get into it, but in the infant communication course, there is a bonus pack, a newborn pack, where we talk about all those things that you can look for. So I could give you some examples. A tired baby has red under their eyes. Okay, like, I've got glasses on, but just, oh yeah, here in this area under the eyes is red, like red eyeliner. Okay, if your baby's getting red eyes, they're tired. And so you can start thinking about putting them down before they start crying. Yeah? Less crying. And responding to their needs. Hungry baby will have their hands closed, they're uncomfortable. Yeah? And then when they're satisfied, as you're feeding them, you'll see that their hands open up, and when they're completely satisfied, their hands will be like flop open. Isn't that lovely? So that's another way to know if your baby's hungry. Actually, that one you can look out for, because also babies in pain or in discomfort have closed fists. So if they've just fed and they're still doing that, there's some pain somewhere. It could be teething or bellyache, or there's something else to look out for. Then from around 4 to 6 months old, you can start introducing signs. Go for the signing. So like milk is always the favourite. And then if your baby can do this to ask for milk, then they don't have to cry for the milk, right? You're reducing the amount of crying and frustration that you all have to suffer. You don't need to go through it all the time. If you give your baby the power to tell you what they need and what they want, they don't have to cry for it. It's so nice. And so introducing these signs is going to really help you from 6 months on to 2 years old. It will get you right up to the terrible twos, which I promise you, if you are signing with your child and focusing on communication, the terrible twos will not be terrible. They'll be much easier. Your baby's behaviour will be much more manageable with a child that you've been focusing on communication. And also, this will help with pottying your baby. So we mentioned that you can already start doing that from birth if you want to. That's called elimination communication, and it's fantastic. It is communication. And I can help you with that. And then also the more traditional age for potty training, well, it gets later and later all the time, doesn't it? So my kids were both done My daughter was done 18 months, day and night dry, so she was a bit early, but we did elimination communication from 3 weeks old. So that made it much easier. And actually we didn't potty train her, she just sort of just became dry. It was amazing. It was just deciding when to not put her in nappies and put her in pants. With my son, it was a bit of a long journey. We didn't really know about elimination communication. With him, we did know about signing, and the signing really helped. So from around 8 months old, he would sign toilet. So we signed toilet at that time like a T for toilet. And he would ask, wherever we went, he would ask to see the toilet. We called him the toilet inspector. So he would ask to use the toilet in the library and in the supermarket and in any cafe. And the best part was, half the time, 50% of the time that he asked, we would show him the toilet and then put him on the toilet. He would pee. It was like the best thing ever. At 8 months old, amazing. And I didn't even know about elimination communication. He was just telling me that he wanted to see the toilets. And so I was putting him on and he would pee. And it went really well that time. And then when he was just turning a year, we did that quite often, and it was really smooth. He would poo on the toilet and everything until we moved house when he was March, April, May. He was 14 months old. Yeah, and there were some big changes. So we moved house, and also that's when I stopped breastfeeding him. So there were a few changes, and then we had a bit of a setback with the toileting stuff. And then I think he was completely done by 2, although we had a few painful months with accidents and things. But I think now potty training is happening more like 2 to 3 years old, I think, generally. So having a baby that will communicate with you will really help your pottying journey, the potty learning, let's say, or potty training, however you approach it. If your baby is able to tell you when they need to pee and poo using appropriate signs, it's going to be so much easier. So for toilet in general, we use the toilet sign. It looks like a T for T. And for pee-pee, we used to use like this. If you have a boy, that's easier to remember, right? And then poo, it's like a fist that you just boom. Now, if I remember rightly, neither child really used pee or poo. It was really the toilet sign. And my daughter, my second child, actually we simplified it from a 2-handed sign to this. Just touch the nose for the potty, because she was much smaller when we were, from 3 weeks old. So we were doing this from 3 weeks old, showing her this sign, and I think maybe around 6 to 8 months she was also signing for toilet like this, and she was making a raspberry sound. So we would cue her when she pooed, making that noise, and then when she was 4 months old, she was making that noise to explain. She'd tell us that she needed to poo, and so we could pop her on the toilet. So yeah, that reduced a lot of frustration and stress for us. The potty training stage was super easy with our second child. So yeah, that's what I wanted to talk about now. Some ways to stop the crying. Let's make the crying stop. If you have any more ideas or suggestions or questions, or you're desperate, then write something in the comments below, and we can have a little chat about how to make your situation easier and what communication tool would be the best for you at this moment. So the communication tools that are on my course that we mentioned, it's body language for newborns from birth to 6 months old, baby sign language from around 4 to 6 months until around 2 years old, and elimination communication for the pottying side of things. So I can help you with any of those things. And all of those things will reduce the amount of crying and stress in your home. Yeah, you'll be happier, you'll be a calmer parent, more confident, because you'll know what your child wants and needs, and you'll be able to respond to them appropriately before they start crying. It's the best thing ever. I just keep saying it because I get excited. I just bang my arm. I get excited about this because it's life-changing. It's a really beautiful method. So anyway, you know where to find me if you want to know more. And thank you for your time and your trust. All right, ciao. Oh, one more thing. Let me know what you want to talk about in the next live, because I think I'm going to do these every week. It's kind of fun. I like it. So in the comment below, just say if there's a question or topic or worry that you have about communicating with your child, and I will put it on the list. Okay, yeah. Ciao.